12 quotes from the legendary Ramana Maharshi and scientific interpretations that will change your perception of reality forever. The truth is always present. It just needs to be recognized. It does not need to be achieved. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. Quantum physics states that what we perceive as reality is actually made up of tiny, invisible particles that exist in a state of superposition until they are measured or observed. This quote by Ramana Maharshi could mean that truth already exists in a state of superposition and is waiting to be recognized. To seek your own truth is the essence of spiritual life. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of subjective reality, which states that the reality we perceive is influenced by our own perception. This quote could mean that each of us must seek our own truth to create our subjective reality. The only means to realize the self is silent self-enquiry. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of the observer effect, which states that the actions of the observer can affect reality. This quote could mean that silent self-enquiry is a type of observation that can help realize the self and affect reality. Silence is the highest teaching. There is no teaching that can compete with silence. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of quantum entanglement, which states that particles are connected regardless of their distance from each other. This quote could mean that silence represents a type of quantum entanglement that connects us with our true self and the world around us. The essence of silence is what we truly are. Everything else is just a passing phenomenon. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of superposition, which states that particles can occupy multiple states simultaneously. This quote could mean that the essence of silence is a state of superposition that reflects our true nature, while everything else is just passing phenomena influenced by our perception. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. What you are, you manifest. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of wave-particle duality, which states that particles can exist as both particles and waves, depending on the type of measurement or observation. This quote could mean that our mind functions like a wave-particle duality, and our thoughts are both particles and waves. Our thoughts can manifest as particles by influencing our actions and decisions, but they can also exist as waves that shape our reality. There is nothing to attain. You are already what you are seeking. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of non-locality, which states that particles are connected regardless of their distance from each other. This quote could mean that the self is already connected to everything we seek, and there is nothing to attain because everything already exists. True happiness is independent of external circumstances. It is an inner quality that can be attained by controlling the mind. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of entanglement, which states that particles are connected and can influence each other. This quote could mean that true happiness is an inner quality that can be attained by being entangled with the self and the world around us, and is not dependent on external circumstances. The path to liberation is silent observation of the mind. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which states that the act of observing a particle changes its state. This quote could mean that the silent observation of the mind has a similar effect by helping us to free ourselves from our limited notions and thought patterns and expand our consciousness. Everything we are is the result of what we have thought. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of superposition, which states that particles can occupy multiple states simultaneously until they are measured or observed. This quote could mean that our thoughts represent a type of superposition that manifests in our body and environment until influenced by actions or events and materialized in a certain way. The body is an illusion. The true self is immortal and infinite. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of uncertainty, which states that it is impossible to measure the position and momentum of a particle simultaneously with absolute precision. This quote could mean that the body represents a type of uncertainty that is constantly changing and can exist in the past, present, and future, while the true self is considered immortal and infinite and exists beyond the limits of time and space. The ego is the enemy of the self. Ramana Maharshi. The scientific interpretation of the quote. In quantum physics, there is the concept of entanglement, which states that particles are connected and can influence each other. This quote could mean that the ego represents a type of entanglement that prevents us from recognizing our true self and instead holds us captive in limited notions and concepts. So stop worrying about your life and start living in the eternal now. Everything is an illusion, so that means all the fear is an illusion. In fact, everything is an illusion, even you. Promise yourself you will start now living from today on. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.